I've been playing outdoors since I was a kid, standing by the front door at around 2 years old, hollering, side, 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 trying to get my mom to let me go play outside. Now, after 30 plus years working in the outdoor business, I'm dropping insider conversations every week with the brand leaders, guides, marketers, CEOs, and others to make the outdoor industry a trillion-dollar juggernaut that drives product innovation, revenue, and public policy for everything outdoors. I'm Rick Sayes. Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today on episode 429 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, I'm talking with Mark Holyoak, Director of Communication at the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Mark has been in the business of communication for 35 years. He spent the first 24 years as a television broadcast journalist in Kansas, Washington, and Montana. In 2012, he accepted the position of Director of Communication at the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, where he oversees Bugle magazine, produces written and digital content, creates video scripts, and is responsible for all internal and external communications. Mark likes to hunt, fly fish, hike, play softball, basketball, and hockey, and ride his mountain unicycle with his kids. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Hey, good to be with you, Rick. Appreciate that.
Yeah, good to chat with you. We were swapping emails over some OWA stuff a couple weeks ago, and it's going to be a great conversation about the Elk Foundation. I don't know much about it, so I'm looking forward to learning.
Well, great. Yeah, there's a lot to tell.
Yeah, you guys do great work. So let's start with your introduction to the outdoors. Tell us about your first outdoor adventure.
Wow. I guess I would just say as a kid, I was just always out there, playing in the creek bottoms and picking up crawdads and fishing every once in a while and just playing with friends. And those of us kids who grew up back in the 70s and into the 80s, especially in the summer, we'd walk out of the house in the morning and not go home until it was dark at night. So that's just kind of how we rolled back then. And I just spent a lot of time hiking and playing and skipping rocks and playing with critters and all sorts of things like that. Your typical kid stuff, I guess.
What a great way to grow up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. So your media career began as a TV sports director in Kansas. You must have played sports as a kid.
True.
What sports did you play?
All of them.
Figured that was coming.
Just kind of whatever the season was is what I like to play. Growing up in Kansas, my dad also was transferred up to Calgary, Alberta for a few years, and so I was introduced to hockey up there, and so I love hockey as well. But even to this day, depending on what the season is, I like to play softball or go golfing or just whatever it is outside, I'm all about.
And you kind of have to play all the sports when you're up there when the 4 seasons, right? You got winter, you got to play the winter sports if you're going to get out.
Absolutely. And enjoy it. I mean, it's some people turn their nose up at that. Hey, if you embrace it, then it's a great thing.
Yeah, exactly. And there's ways to stay warm these days. A lot of good outdoor gear out there, yeah. What would you say is your best sport?
I don't know, at this point in my life that I can put one foot in front of the other and keep walking, but I don't know. I mean, like I said, it still depends on the season. I like to play basketball this time of year to pick up and play softball all summer long. Of course, I love to get out and fly fish and love to hike in the fall and hunt when the hunting season starts. And so I just kind of roll with the calendar, I guess.
Mm-hmm. What was your best high school sport? Did you play football, basketball, all the things?
I didn't play in high school. I was one of those 5'8", 140-pound kids. Our basketball team had a front line of 6'9" and 6'6" and 6'5". So, yeah, but I played a lot of rec ball, church league ball, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, just always looking to play and go and do things.
Get outside, yeah. How about your first hunting story or hunting success story? What was that like?
Well, I guess it depends what kind of critter you want to talk about. But my folks they both grew up in southern Utah, and they grew up fishing and hunting down there. And so as a kid, we would go up in the mountains, and they got me a 22 when I was probably, I don't know, 10 or 11, whatever. And we would walk through the sagebrush fields and kind of a line and go jackrabbit hunting, or if we took a cottontail, we'd take it back and clean it and eat it. And so I have fond memories of that for sure, just with my parents and my brothers and my sister being able to get out and do that. But otherwise, even though it's kind of interesting, even though they grew up in the outdoors and I was exposed a bit to the outdoors, we always lived in the city.
Interesting.
And just very I lived in New Orleans, I lived in Wichita, Kansas, I lived in other places. And so it wasn't until we lived in Canada and I went on my first deer hunt with my dad, and I wasn't old enough to carry a gun back then. I was probably 10 or so. But, it was fun. We came face to face with the moose up close. We saw a herd of deer.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed it. But when fall rolled around, it's not like we hunted. It wasn't until I moved to Montana and started working here. This was back 2003. So I was older and pushing 40. And we were at church, and then all these guys were out in the lobby swapping their phones back and forth. I'm like, what are you looking at? And so they're all showing their pictures of their elk and their deer and all this stuff. And
nice.
I got my son, who was 10 at the time. I'm like, we need to figure out this hunting thing. And so that's when I really started going after big game. And it's just been a blast.
And you guys hunt everything: elk, deer, rabbit, the whole
we
shit.
do.
Yeah. We're in a great spot for it.
Yeah.
And do you eat?
Yeah, it is.
Do you eat most
an
of
ideal
it?
spot up here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not going to shoot it if I don't eat it.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to eat it if I don't shoot it either.
Right, that makes sense. And how did you?
Yeah, I was just saying it's a lot of fun, especially when I was learning at the same time my son was. So it's almost like even there's 30 years between us, we were figuring it out together, going up and hiking this ridge and going there and doing this and doing that. And so it was just a lot of fun to learn together. He's now, raising his own family over in Washington, and he gets
cool.
out, and I'll go over and join him on the opener in Washington, and we'll go out and hike for miles and see what we see. And then he was over here last year and went out elk hunting with me and some friends at the same time. So we keep that going.
That's a great family tradition. Did you have anybody to coach you up there when you first getting started? Kind of point you in the right direction?
To do.
Or?
Well, not really. The very first time I went out with, I went out with this older guy, and he, looking back, he was a road hunter. Nothing against road hunters.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
if you get up in the morning, and especially if you hike for miles, and then you get back to your truck at 11 o'clock, road hunting is a good way to relax for an hour or so. But
yeah.
But we went out, and he pointed out some things and said some things, and I was like, okay, so I'm not going to go hunting with this guy again. Things like, when I was a kid, we used to shoot here, and now it's private, and if I see something, and I'm like, no, not going to do that. But so it was mostly, I did have some friends, and I went out with them, but it was mostly my son and I just kind of figuring it out, where to go and what to look for, and how to scan horizons, and using our binoculars, and then just hoofing it and just going to the higher country and trying to find critters.
That's very cool. And how did you figure out where to shoot the animal and then how to dress it out? That's kind of, you don't want to shoot it in the hind tail. You want to.
Yeah. Well,
that's a process.
I was reading a little bit, and I have all these friends of mine at church and otherwise that I talked to about where they would go and how they would do it and where they take their meat. And
got you.
My son and I over the years have shot a number of elk and deer, and only once have I ever taken anything in to have it processed. I like to do it myself, hang it in my garage, cut it up myself, grind it, and just cut up the roast, the backstrap, and everything else the way I'd like to do it. And I just feel a lot more comfortable doing that. And then, then you always know, where your meat's been and who's touched it and all that kind of stuff. And so, just prepare it the way you'd like, and then eat it when you'd like.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how did you get involved with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation?
So I spent 24 years in television as a broadcast journalist. So to turn on your TV, and that's the guy who was doing the news. Or 14 years I did the sports, and then I became a news anchor for a decade after that, and did that here at the CBS affiliate here in Missoula. And so I'd come over to the building a couple of times to interview different folks here about predator management and some of the land work they did. They worked with a landowner, about 2 hours south of here, and I traveled out there, and I can't remember the scope of the project back then, but it was so many 100 acres, and they'd actually worked with them, and then they purchased the property and conveyed it to Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, so it became public property. And there was a hunting cabin down there, and there was actually elk on the property when I was down there in the summer. And so to do the story, I came back to the building because they brought the landowner back here, and they had an all-staff meeting, and everybody actually stood and applauded and thanked him for working with RMEF. And so it was just kind of a little mini celebration. So that was the first time I was exposed to RMEF. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I continued to do the news anchor and reporter thing. And then one morning I got up and I was flipping through the paper, and I saw this little teeny ad that said public relations director. And I was like, wow, how cool would that be?
Nice.
I mean, one of the things that I was already doing as a reporter was I would do a weekly segment called Outdoors, and it would have to do with anything hunting, fishing, hiking, natural resources. I'd go out with biologists, and they'd shock fish, rivers, just all sorts of fun, cool stuff. I went out and they captured a lion that they collared and checked out its health and used the hunting dogs to find it, and all this. So it did all sorts of really cool things. And so when I saw this, I'm like, how sweet would this be?
Right.
So I went ahead and went online and applied, and I didn't hear anything like for a month and a half. And so I'm like, okay, well, so much for that. I didn't realize it was their really busy season that they were gearing up for the national convention and some other things. And I guess they were shorthanded at the same time. And so I was sitting a month and a half later, sitting at the table with my wife, and she's like, oh, you've got an email here from RMEF. And I'm like, oh no, the dreaded email response, right?
Sorry, thanks for playing.
So clicked on it, and they said, hey, are you available Tuesday at 10 or whatever? And I said, yeah. And so I went in and interviewed with the CEO and a couple other executives and had a nice chat with them. And when we were done, they said, well, we're still going to talk to some other people, and we'll call you at the end of next week. And so I was like, okay, that sounds good. And so I'm sitting at my desk the next day, and I get the call that says, can you talk? And that's when you're sitting in the middle of a newsroom with people around you, and you're like, yeah, sort of. And they said, well, this is a good call. We'd like to have you come and join us. And so
cool.
I nodded my head and said the words I could get away with in the middle of a newsroom where everyone has big ears as it is, and then finished the ratings period and started a month later. And I've been here for almost 12 years, and it's just been wonderful. It's a great place. And one of the things that maybe, I don't know if you have to be a member of the media to understand this, but when you're a media member, you walk the fence, right? You can't expose who you are, what you believe. You can't come across as biased in any form or sense of the word. I had a lot of people over the years knock on my door, and they'd say, hey, could I put this campaign sign in your yard? And I'm like, no, you can't.
Right.
Why not? Well, I work in the media, and then I don't want people to think I support this person or this party or this issue or this movement. So one of the things that I really love about working for RMEF is now I can advocate for something. I use the skills that I already have, but I can say, hey, we're pro hunting, we're pro public access, we're pro this, we don't agree with this. And so after living that kind of life for 24 years where you can't personally do things, now I can do it personally and professionally. And given our cause and our mission, it's a wonderful cause to be behind.
I was going to say, it's something that you believe in, so it's even more stronger when you believe in what you're doing and supporting and all those things. So that's great. Good for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just a paycheck. No, it's a core to who I am.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I talk to a lot of people about how to get into the outdoor industry and all aspects of the outdoor industry, and I think that's what's so great about all the things that we do in the outdoors, because 99% of the time, it's stuff that we, believe in 100%, participate in the activity frequently, and it's just blending work and life makes it all less work. It's all just fun
Absolutely.
stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was a geologist, and so a petroleum geologist actually. So he loved the land and the formations and all that kind of the rocks and the hills and the trees and all that stuff. And so he, of course, spewed nonstop about those sorts of things, which to the point my brothers and I would roll our eyes. But he had a great love for it. But one of the things that he told me, he said, he said, Mark, when you get of age, you need to find a job, a profession where you can say, you mean I get paid to do this? And that's what he did, and that's what I've done.
Exactly.
And I feel the same way. I feel blessed and fortunate that that I can sit here and come into work this morning and start going over the day and read about elk and predator management and natural resources and active fire management and all these things that have everything to do with our mission, because they're all core to who I am.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, my dad and grandfather both were steel workers. And I'll never forget the day when we came back from the tour of the plant, and they were all excited because we could get you a summer job out there. And I looked at them and I said, there's not enough money in the world that would get me to work out there. And because I was all into sports, and my grandfather hunted, so hunting and fishing and all those things, and I was going to find another way. But yeah, it's once you find that way, it's just not work. It just all blends together. Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'd say about that is, for me, it took a while. I mean, I enjoyed my time in television. I really did. I met a lot of people. I went a lot of places. I talked to people I never would have talked to before. It took me to get to this point. Growing up, like anyone else, you work different jobs and you see what you like and you don't. And I mean, one of the jobs that I had is 2 different times as I worked in the factories at Coleman Camping. And so I was exposed to factory life, which was a good paycheck back then. And I remember once, right when I first started, and one of the jobs that I had is I would go around and I would relieve all the machine operators for their lunch breaks and then their regular breaks during the day. And I remember when I first walked up and they said, "This is Sven so-and-so, and he's worked this machine for 28 years, and he was really good and a lot faster than I was." But after working his machine for the lunch hour, I was like, I don't think I could do this for 28 years.
Right.
So, but I think a lot of that, I think we can all look back to, how we started, where we worked, things, we could pick up things that we like and things that we appreciate, because I appreciated the guy's work ethic for sure. He was super fast and super good at his job. But for me, that wasn't something that I wanted to do. But it was a good experience. But it also opened my eyes to, I need to find what I need to do, similar to your experience.
Yeah, and that's what I got out of my whole family is the work ethic. I mean, just grinders. You go grind it out. So, yeah, that's good, yeah. So tell our listeners about the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. What's your mission, and what do you guys do?
Well, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation was founded by 4 elk hunters in northwest Montana 40 years ago. Later this year, actually, we're approaching our 40th anniversary. And so they looked around and realized that there was no movement or organization that advocated specifically for elk. I mean, there was ducks and turkeys and some of these others, but there wasn't anybody that was banging the drum for elk. And so they scratched their pennies together and formed this organization that started out in the middle of a field on a double-wide trailer. And the mission is to ensure the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. And so that was the focus then, and that remains the focus today. And, going from a double-wide trailer to now our headquarters where we're located, we have a nice building where we take care of all sorts of work. We have a distribution center next door where they push out product to our 500 chapters across the nation, which allows, through our banquet program, which allows us to generate funds to put back on the ground to be able to help elk and other wildlife. And one of the things that, when we say other wildlife, if you go and you do, let's say, a prescribed burn and some forest thinning in a particular place where there's a lot of dead downfall and not a lot of grass growing on the ground, and if you thin out some trees and open that canopy up and get the sunshine on the ground below and grass starts to grow, that's good for elk. But you know what? It's also good for deer, for bears, for small mammals, for birds. And we do a lot of projects where there's riparian areas, springs and creeks and rivers. That's all good for fish. And so when we say other wildlife, we do focus on the elk, but the trickle-down effects they're quite widespread for other critters.
I'll bet, yeah. And I'm assuming a typical day for you is pretty much office-bound, but how often do you get to go out in the field and do stuff like that?
Well, it kind of depends. I don't want to say I get to choose, but sometimes I do get to choose. I'm also...
Pick your favorite spots.
I'm also a volunteer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I'm not going to be in the office today because I got to go help the annual whatever,
Right. Yeah, there's a project that's popped up here, the last several years. It's a couple hours west of here, right on the Idaho border up in the top of the mountains. There's a really popular trail that was converted from an old railway line. It's called the Hiawatha Trail, and people who live in this part of the country will know it's got scenic vistas, and it's got, 15 tunnels you go through on your bike, and big trestles that it's 300 feet to the ground below, and There's forest everywhere, and there's deer. I've seen moose up there running around, all this stuff. But anyway, back in the day when the railroads ran that line before it became a bike trail, not only did they run it, but then they converted to being an electric automotive or electric locomotive, I should say.
Oh,
and so they put up electric poles with 9 strands of wire that ran parallel to the tracks all the way through the mountains. Well, and so they had electric trains for years, and then electric trains went away, and then the trains didn't run there anymore. And so those poles have all fallen to the ground with all the wire on it.
Oh, geez.
And it's super steep and super thick up there. So it was about 6 or 7 years ago, and this is just one example of a lot of different volunteer projects that people do. But about 6 years ago, there was one of our members happened to be out there elk hunting. I don't know why he picked that spot. It's super brutal and steep. But anyway, they were out elk hunting, and they came across a bull elk that had this wiring, this 9-strand wiring that was wrapped so tightly around its antlers that it was basically pinned to a tree and stuck on the ground, and it was just a skeleton. And so that's how it died. It became tangled and pulled itself so tightly and thrashed and went about until it couldn't move, and it died. And so he wrote a letter and said, hey, this would be a great volunteer project. Let's get people out on the ground. And so they started going out a couple years ago, and that's when I went out. And actually a whole bunch of us here from work went out as well. And I took my grandson and others, and we went 2 years. The second year, we actually came across another one of those same scenarios. So there's animals out there that are being harmed because of this past industrial life, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, that's just the way they did things.
We go out and right. And so we go out and we take our bolt cutters. That's what I carry, or your snips or whatever, and cut up this wiring that's it's just part of the landscape. It's stuck in trees. It's stuck in the ground. It's stuck in bushes. And so we pull it out and we roll it up and we get it off the landscape. And so that to me has just been super eye-opening. We had people that came to that all the way from Iowa, Georgia, and other places came out just to take part in that particular volunteer project. But so I do have the chance to get out. I've been out on the scenes of different landscapes that we've helped conserve and protect acreage and open public access for people to hunt and fish. And that is really satisfying and thrilling when you can actually walk on that land and say, you know what, we actually had a part in conserving this, and it's going to be protected forever because of that. And so we can, there's a lot of little chunks of land out there that we're focused on. And the more we can hear about it from people that are on the ground about, hey, this is for sale, or hey, this elk are here, or whatever, then the more we can do to notify our folks down the hall here in the lands department and say, let's look into this. Let's see if we can acquire this. Let's see if we can convey this to the BLM or the Forest Service or a state agency, and let's conserve it.
That's cool. Yeah. Hey, do you write a lot? No, I mean a lot. It feels like I write a ton. From podcast show notes, questions for guests, to social posts, I'm always trying to create compelling content, but also write properly. Proper spelling, grammar, sentence structure. I want it to sound good and also be correct. And I can hear Mrs. Muir from my high school English class in my ear as she reviews my paper and kindly points out all the mistakes I made, particularly mixing up the I and the E. I still do that today. If you write as much as I do, it's nice to have a little backup with spelling and grammar, and I use Grammarly. Grammarly is a cloud-based typing assistant. It reviews spelling, punctuation, clarity, engagement, delivery mistakes, detects plagiarism, and suggests replacements for the identified errors. It also allows users to customize their style, tone, and context-specific language. Their instant grammar checker corrects all grammar errors and enhances your writing. To try it out, go to ricksays.com/grammarcheck and get signed up today. You can thank me later. That's ricksays.com/grammarcheck. Let's get back to the show. What about some of the challenges? What's one of your biggest challenges you guys deal with? Those kind of things, finding them and finding the resources to clean them up?
Yeah, that's part of it. I guess I would even swing the pendulum a little bit and say that the biggest challenge or a big challenge is that people need to pay attention to what's going on around them. As hunters, we always look forward to the next set of regulations that are coming out. Oh, hey, look, the quota's up to this, or it's going to be an all sex for this species for the first week of hunting season or whatever. And we have our nose deep in those regulations, and we need to understand them. Same thing goes for fishing.
Right.
But there are things that are happening around us that we really need to pay attention to, especially in this day and age. There's the movement from a lot of folks out there that want to do away with hunting, want to do away with trapping, want to limit fishing, want to limit public access. Those are the things that I think that's really the biggest challenge right now, is those movements, a lot of environmental animal rights movements, those sorts of things. We've seen what can happen when it's not handled by those who know best, by the professional wildlife managers, by the biologists. There's some funky, reckless, radical ballot initiatives. There's one right now in Colorado that wants to completely ban management of mountain lions and bobcats. And that's kind of 4 years after the ballot initiative that put wolves on the ground in Colorado. And it was just, we need to pay attention of what's going around us. And there's a lot of places where a lot of us live where these type of restrictions can very well come up and just bite us. And it not just bites us as hunters and anglers and hikers and people who love the outdoors, but it really restricts and changes wildlife management from what's been successful not forever, but for the last, 130, 150 years through the North American wildlife conservation model, where management plays a key role in sustaining elk, deer, mountain lions, bears, all the species. And so
helping reduce the impact with humans, right? Because that's one of the things that they need is they need to stay away from humans. But we no longer have the United States we had back in the 1800s. It's different.
Right.
So things, unfortunately, because of the population and all the stuff we have, it all has to be managed.
Right. And yeah, that's why it's so important for us to pay attention, and not just only pay attention and be educated, but actually raise a voice.
Yeah, right.
A lot of things will happen, and then people will say, well, what are you going to do about that? And we'll say, were you involved 3 years ago when this came up? We were spreading the word back then.
Yeah.
I mean, did you talk to your family? Did you talk to your friends? I mean, if it's a matter of going to the polls or attending a wildlife commission meeting, how many people have attended a wildlife commission meeting?
Right.
I'm guessing not a lot, probably haven't, and they discuss things that are super important all the time. Yeah. And so it's important for us to not only pay attention to what's going on, but to be actively engaged.
Yeah, you're spot on. Are there any hunts in your future? What's coming up?
Oh, there's always hunts in the future.
What's next?
Are there successful hunts in the future? I don't know about that.
That's why they call it hunting.
Yeah. No, we have a place that I've hunted with some friends. They are my friends. They're actually my sons. My son's just about to turn 30. They're his age, but I've hunted with them for years, him and his friends. Cool. And even though he's out of state, I still hunt with his friends. But there's a place where we go and we drive an hour in the dark and we hunt an hour, or we hike an hour in the dark to get to the top of the mountain. We look around and climb all over the place and seek and search and look and, try to find some elk, and had no success this year. And we've had success in the past, and we'll give it a go again next year. And
very cool.
For me, the thing that I'm actually most excited about is I've got a grandson who's not quite of age yet, but he's been out with me. And then my daughter, my oldest daughter, who never expressed interest, and who's like 35 or something now. Like 2 years ago, she was like, "Hey, Dad, can I go hunting with you?" I'm like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." So I've taken her, and I've taken her oldest boy, and then she has an 8-year-old daughter who's all into dance, who brought it up at least 3 times last year. "Papa, I really want to go hunting with you."
Wow, cool.
Yes, let's go. And so for me, I'm really excited about that, to take my grandkids out.
Yeah.
And they I've been out and I shot a deer with my grandson, and you don't know how young kids may react. You talk to him about it. Mm-hmm. And he didn't bat an eye and held the leg as I field dressed the animal and got home and gave him his own bag of meat. And so, yeah, so for me, that's what I'm really excited about is to be able to take these young kids out and just say, this is what it's like. This is what you see. And they know the outdoors. They spend time in the outdoors, but not necessarily hunting, just because their parents haven't. But that's another thing I think is really important, is to just look and see who's around you. And if you have younger family members, take them out. And if they're not younger, then look around and see who do your kids or grandkids play with, and see if they can go on an overnighter and go to your camp, or if it's not an overnighter, just take them out and introduce them to things that they see. Because my granddaughter sees things that I didn't see. My eyes are up. I'm looking for movement and she's like, "Look at this, Papa! Look at this!" And,
they are on the ground.
Come across a mushroom as big as your boot or something. Like, wow! So I'm learning at the same time.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's great. Switch gears a little bit. Do you have any suggestions or advice for folks looking to get into the outdoor industry, outdoor biz in some way?
I would say simply, if you have something you enjoy, go after it. Look for opportunities and create some of your own opportunities. Sometimes you have to take action to make that happen. I go back when I was in college and not knowing exactly what I wanted to do as a profession. Back then, it was like, when in doubt, take business. And so I'm taking economics and managerial accounting and financial accounting and all these classes that I'm gritting my teeth through. And I remember sitting in a math class one day, and they're like, "As you remember back in high school," and he's pointing to an equation on the board, x over y equals z squared something something, and I'm just looking at that going, like it was a foreign language. I was like, what am I doing? Right. So I got up and I walked out of class, and I sat on campus, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like 21 years old or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, Mark, what do you like? You like to be outside. You like to be active. You like sports. I thought about, I could maybe go into being like a game warden or maybe a biologist. No, I don't like science. I can't do that. Maybe I can. And so I ended up walking across campus, going into the basement of the communications building, going to broadcasting, which I really enjoyed, which for me gave me the skills that I needed. And those are skills that I use every day: communication, writing, script writing, all those, talking to people, all those sorts of things. So I had to get up and walk out of class and sit and think and ponder and then make a decision. So I would say the same thing. Anybody, whatever level of or whatever interest you have in the outdoors, whatever that particular niche is, then think about it, make a decision, and then act on it, and then just start reaching out. Mm-hmm. I mean, I needed to have a internship in order to graduate from college. And so I reached out to a local TV station in Salt Lake City because I was going to school down there at the time. And I went and interviewed and I didn't get it. And so then I called the sports department and just actually talked to the guys who were on the air. And I said, "Hey, do you need a body to come in to do anything? I'll do anything." And they brought me on board and I got an internship. So sometimes you have to make things happen. Yeah. You reach out to who you know. Yeah. Do your own networking, and that's what I would say. Same thing. If you really want it, you can get it. If it takes effort, put forth the effort, and it'll be worth it. Yeah. Or you have to be willing to start at the bottom, right? You're not going to say you want to go be an engineer. Well, you're not going to be an engineer day one. You have to go do X, Y, Z. So you got to be willing to start at the bottom, work your way up. Yeah, we have a similar path. It took me flunking out of college though to figure out my path to outdoor recreation. Yeah, it was interesting. But the rest is history. Like you, I stumbled into outdoor recreation. I was all into the outdoors and realized you could get a degree in it, and then realized I can get a master's degree in it, and here we are. It served me well. So, yeah. Well, life lessons. I mean, everyone learns them a different way. That's right. It depends on how you respond to them. So, that's it. Yeah, learn a lesson and take advantage. There you go. Exactly, yeah. What's your favorite outdoor gear purchase under $100? My favorite outdoor gear purchase? Yeah, your favorite piece of outdoor gear that's under $100. Okay, I'll cheat here. I didn't purchase it, but I took it. Okay. So I really like to fly fish. Yeah, I really like to fly fish. So that's what I do in the warm months. Yeah. Even though I call them crazy people are out there doing it right now, but I'd rather not have to break through the ice in places to fly fish. But
right.
So I buy the materials, I tie my own flies. I really enjoy that. And so I came across my wife's cross-stitching threads.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, not cross-stitching, what do they call it? Is that what they call it?
Needlepoint or?
It's something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, she would take the threads and she would different patterns and she would make what looked like pictures for the wall. Except
embroidery.
Embroidery threads. That's it, embroidery
Gotcha.
threads.
Okay,
and so I came across that and I'm like, she had orange for October caddises and olive green for olive caddises and black and yellow for really vibrant, for just Adam's flies or just all sorts of everything. And so I didn't purchase it. I'm like, hey, when's the last time you did any of this? Oh, I don't really do that anymore. I'm going to take this bag. It had all these different colors in it. So
that's great.
It wasn't a purchase. Yeah, it was more of just a pilfering.
Right.
But that's what I use. I mean, you can obviously go and get different types of materials at Sportsman's Warehouse or Cabela's or wherever you shop and make your own bodies. But I'm telling you, that embroidery stuff works great.
Really?
It's super great, super durable. Yeah, it's really good.
Interesting. And it's probably cheaper than fly material.
Oh, yeah, because I didn't pay anything.
Well, for you, yeah. But I mean, even at retail, the fly material is marked up because it's sporting related, specialty use. I'm assuming, I don't know. I should go price it out before I say that. But.
Well, that's the thing is I don't have to go look.
You don't have
to know what it costs, but all
awesome.
I know is this works great for me.
There you go. That's a great tip, too. Embroidery material. Excellent. How about some of your favorite books? Do you read a lot? What's one or two of your favorite books?
I'm not really a book reader. Mm-hmm. I'm more of an online article reader than that. I mean, I've read some things over the years.
Yeah. You have a couple favorite websites you go to all the time? Or?
Well, I like ours.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, I'm sure you guys put out some good content. Check it out.
But one of the things that I do here at the Elk Foundation is I oversee the publication staff. We have 4 great editors, and they put together Bugle magazine. And so I do read every word of that magazine before it comes out, and then work with the creative services department who gets the photos and designs and graphs and all that stuff. So I'm obviously very deep in that, but one of the things that I do every day is I come in and we have kind of a media monitoring platform that we use that allows me it has articles that are posted by everyone across the country that fit into the categories that or names or phrases that I've thrown out there, like elk, hunting, wolves, grizzlies, conservation, all those sorts of things. And they all go to my inbox. And so I read a lot every day from a lot of these different newspapers and online publication sites that are out there. So that's where I do a lot of my reading.
Gotcha.
Is informational, coming across new studies, advocacy issues, bills that are being introduced, anything and everything. So that's the reading that I do. Not so much a book guy as that kind of guy.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, a lot of us read that.
Although I do like John Grisham, I'll say that.
Oh yeah, he's a good one. Yep, I think I've read everything he's written so far.
Yeah, I've never seen an elk pop up in any of those, but someday.
That would be a good one. He could weave an interesting tale on an elk hunt, I'll bet. Let's see. Is there anything else you'd like to say or ask of our listeners as we wrap up here?
Well, I guess I just would throw out just a little bit more about the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. A lot of people might think because of our name that we're solely focused in the West, but if you took the United States and cut it into thirds, you'll find the difference in membership from the West to the middle part of the country to the East of only a difference of about 18,000 in each of those 3 segments. And so we have membership clear across the country, and we do significant on-the-ground work. I don't know that a lot of people really understand that. Just from our programs, we look for land conservation and access projects, so we will look for chunks of land that are available. As I mentioned before, we'll try to purchase those, and then we'll convey those to a public agency. And if we can't to a public agency, we'll try and put an easement on them if it's privately owned, so that people can't come in and build lots of homes all over it. And it keeps the keeps the habitat the way it is. And so another thing we do is just from our banquets is we generate a lot of money that we turn around on the ground, and then we use that to leverage additional dollars. Like last year, we raised almost $6 million, leveraged almost 26 or 27 million partner dollars, and put that money on the ground to enhance habitat,
Nice.
for research projects, to open access, to improve access. So we're an organization that does on-the-ground conservation work. We make a difference for elk and other critters at the same time. There's a lot of great organizations and groups out there that advocate for things and talk of things, but we're one that actually moves the needle when it comes to taking care of the habitat that's out there for elk and all sorts of other animals as well. And so that's really important. That's who we are, it's who we've been, and that's who we will be going forward. And I would just say if people are interested, just go to rmef.org and just click around and do some of your own online surfing and see who we are. And if you like what you see, then think about becoming involved, maybe becoming a member. $35 a year. It's not expensive.
Wow, that's a deal.
But those dollars make a difference when we can put them on the ground.
Yeah, that's well said, too, because I think a lot of people don't realize how much habitat and land work you do in to help the elk or to help whatever species it is, right? I mean, I think people see these groups that are the Elk Foundation or the Mountain Lion or whatever, and there's a lot of work going on to help the habitat so that animal or whatever it is can survive. Because without the habitat, there's nothing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I could spit out and spew a lot of numbers, and I'll give you just a couple just because. But, last year we did 11 land conservation and access projects in 9 different states that conserved or protected 72,000 acres. And at the same time, we opened access to 78,000 acres in 8 different states. So we had a project in Kentucky that we just finished in with some other partners in December. It was the largest easement that's ever been done in Kentucky, and now not only are some 54,000 acres in the middle of Kentucky's elk range conserved, but because of the easement, even though it's on private land, it's open for public access forever now.
Nice.
That's a cool deal. That's a
great.
Significantly large chunk of There's a lot of public land out here out west. There's not in the east.
Right.
So there's a nice big chunk for people to go, and if they want to hunt elk and they can get a tag, great. If they want to go after deer, great. If they just want to go out and hike and do that sort of thing and camp, there you go. So we have similar projects like that all over.
Do you guys have any wildlife overpass crossings in progress or installed already? Or that's going on here in California. It's almost impossible to get done. It's going to be, by the time it's approved and built, I'll be dead. But anything going on up there for you guys?
We advocated last year, I think it was in Utah, and pushed through. We got the legislature to approve $1 million for that, and then that was quadrupled because of federal funding. And so they're going to build some overpasses there. I know we put funding toward a couple overpasses in Colorado, both of which have been completed. Those kind of things are popping up all over because people are getting the word that, hey, these migration corridors, that these highways are cutting off migration corridors. And we've all driven in places where you've seen a dead deer by the side of the road, or a pronghorn, or even an elk. And the bigger they get, elk and moose, that's dangerous for drivers as well. So yeah. And there's some federal funding put out late last year that's going to help that. So we will pitch in funding where we can to help move those projects along and shore up those migration corridors.
It's pretty interesting how that works. I had Doug Peacock on the show a while back, and he was telling me a story in Wyoming about a young grizzly bear, not an older bear, that has been habituated to not crossing the highway because he's seen dead bears on the highway, he's seen his parents not cross the highway, whatever, and they had they radio collar these bears, and these bears would walk up to this highway and turn around and walk and go up a mile down and walk to the highway and just never step foot on the highway. So the animals are being habituated, which messes with their migration process, right? They can't get to where they need to go, have been going for eons. So it's interesting how that's working out. Yeah.
Years ago, when I was a news anchor, there was a really an unseen project. It was an undercrossing that was south of here, about an hour of where I'm sitting right now in Missoula. And they built an underpassing. This wasn't a large one. This was a small one. Mm-hmm. And they took video, and there was all sorts of everything that crawled through there. Skunks and raccoons and reptiles. And so there's all sorts of crossing efforts. The same thing goes on in creeks in a lot of places where they're putting in fish ladders and these sorts of things to help move fish around as well. So all those things that you can help animals do what they do, which is move. I mean, we move all the time. Right. We have it easiest, us humans. Yeah. But if we can do things to conserve and maintain the movement patterns that these animals have shown forever, then that's a win.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And where can people find you if they'd like to follow up?
Yeah, just definitely go to our website, rmef.org, and click around on there and see what you see. And we do what we do, and we're going to continue to do that. It's important for us to serve not just our membership, but to serve the outdoor community, and especially to look out for the landscapes and the animals. And that's who we are as an organization.
Yep, excellent. Well, it's been great talking to you. Keep doing all the great work that you do. I appreciate the efforts, and I hope to meet you someday. If you ever come down to the southern Inyo area, Bishop area, come on down and we'll go fishing. Now's the perfect time to fish here, actually, but it's not minus 12 or 30.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a plan.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate that.
Yep. Thanks, Mark.
All right. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or spread the word and tell a friend. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week, and thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Sayes.